From Washington, this is VOA News. Britain votes to join the coalition fighting the Islamic State group in Iraq. U.S. President Obama calls Ebola a threat to every nation. I'm Vincent Bruce, reporting from Washington. British lawmakers have voted to join the U.S.-led airstrikes on Islamic State or the Islamic State militants in Iraq. The government insists Britain will not send troops to the region, however. Henry Ridgwell reports from London.
After 7 hours of debate Friday, British lawmakers voted overwhelmingly in favour of taking military action against the Islamic State. Though the bill only covers military action in Iraq, some lawmakers said it would inevitably lead to airstrikes on Islamic State positions in Syria. Henry Ridgwell for VOA News, London.
U.S. President Barack Obama told an international global health security conference in Washington Friday that fighting the Ebola epidemic is a national security priority for the United States, and it should be for other nations as well.
We have to change our mindsets and start thinking about biological threats as the security threats that they are, in addition to being humanitarian threats and economic threats. We have to bring the same level of commitment and focus to these challenges as we do when meeting around more traditional security issues.
There's no word of progress during the second day of talks on Iran's nuclear program. Top diplomats from the United States, the European Union, and Iran have held a second day of talks Friday after meetings Thursday. German Foreign Minister Frank-Walter Steinmeier says a solution to the nuclear issue, quote, has never been closer in the past 10 years, though he warned the remaining work to be done is probably the most difficult, unquote. Representatives have until November 24th for agreeing to a deal. This is VOA News. Rallies and protests against radical Islam are taking place across France following the execution of a French hostage by militant Islamists in Algeria. Friday, members of France's 5 million-strong Muslim community organized a rally in front of the Paris Mosque. Lisa Bryant reports from Paris.
They came by the hundreds on a sunny afternoon, Muslims and non-Muslims, to express their sorrow for the death of 55-year-old Hervé Gourdel and to reject the brutal methods of Islamic State and other radical groups. Gourdel's picture was displayed at the entrance of the mosque, where politicians and Muslim clerics called for the country to unify in denouncing extremism. Since Gourdel's death, the French government has launched more airstrikes against IS targets in Iraq, while also tightening security here after the group called on Muslims to kill Westerners. Lisa Bryant for VOA News, Paris.
American fighter jets, drones, and other aircraft pounded targets of the group calling itself the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria on Friday. U.S. Central Command said 4 Islamic State tanks were destroyed in Syria's Deir el-Zur province. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said a command center for the Islamic State group was also hit. At the UN General Assembly Friday, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov voiced objections to U.S. and Arab allied forces bombing Islamic State militants in Syria, saying it is a violation of international law. We hear him now through an interpreter.
Excluding Syrian authorities from struggle that is taking place, from effort that is taking place on that treachery, not only goes against international law, but undermines efficiency of the effort.
Unlike Iraq, which has requested airstrikes against Islamic State fighters, U.S. and allied attacks in Syria have been made without the permission of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon says those involved in this military campaign must abide by international humanitarian law, But in the case of these strikes, the military campaign is taking place where the Syrian government is not in control. Zambian Vice President Guy Scott told his country's parliament Friday that President Michael Satta's health is entirely normal. Mr. Satta did not address the United Nations General Assembly as planned earlier this week, Wednesday. New York police told VOA that he was treated at his hotel Thursday by doctors with the U.S. State Department. Police and protesters clashed once more in Ferguson, Missouri, after the police chief of the St. Louis suburb issued a videotaped apology to the family of the unarmed black teenager killed last month by a white police officer. I'm Vincent Bruce in Washington.
That's the latest world news from VOA.